believe if I didn't become your president, I believe that this country would have had problems like they've never had before.
The era of American economic surrender is over.
The biggest tax cut in American history, the broadest base tax cut in American history, is coming within a matter of months. So any discussion of recession seems silly.
Are any questions?
How was the golf tournament?
Very good, because I won. It's good to win. You heard I won, right? Did you hear I won?
2.5 months on the job, and U.S. President Donald Trump has upended the global, at least economic order, in a campaign to redesign the American economy at other countries' expense. Despite pushback from those countries, like ours, through counter tariffs and diplomacy, and even pushback from within, with the likes of Elon Musk, Trump is digging in. Let's bring back the front bench to unpack the absurdity and significance of the moment we find ourselves in. Brian Gallant, James Moore, Tom Mulcair, and Rob Benzie are here. Tom, I'll start with you. We played sort of an array of clips over the last 2 days where, you know, at the end of which Donald Trump is talking about how he won a golf game over the weekend. I think there had been some thought, and the markets priced this in a little bit, or reflected at least, that because of the pushback, because of the impact on the economy and the markets themselves, that Trump would back down in some capacity. Instead, he's adding another 50%, for example, tonight, to the tariffs on China. How do you explain that, I guess, or attempt to?
Well, up until noon today, there had been a rumor going around in Washington and in New York that Trump would pause the tariffs for something like 90 days. And that was seeing the markets begin to surge and come back. Then Trump was the first one to get in front of the cameras, and the White House put out clear statements. Fake news, not true. We're not for backing down on this thing. They're Margaret Thatcher moment. And boom, the markets ended well down again by the end of the day. It's an unbelievable circumstance because you're listening to Peter Navarro there, and you understand that they actually believe what they're saying, that this money coming in from other countries is all going into the coffers of the United States and will allow them to finance a massive tax cut for the richest Americans. The problem is that money is actually coming out of the pockets of American consumers and will provoke severe inflation and probably a recession. But what I just said there took 4 or 5 sentences. It's complicated and it doesn't get through. We've bought a few billboards in the States to try to explain it. But until the person with the MAGA hat goes to buy their next Chevy Silverado and finds out that it's $15,000 more than the last one, then they'll start to react. But up until then, Americans are saying, yeah, make all these other countries give us money. That works. That's how the economy works around the world. That's not how the world economy works. And that's why it's so interesting to watch its effect here, because Carney has been describing it to Canadians in terms they can understand. And then I think is one of the reasons people see in Carney somebody who can actually deal with this mess.
Do you think, Brian, the moment that Tom describes, when a Trump supporter, for example, finds out that his car is an extra $6,000 and pushes back against this plan, do you think that moment is on the horizon? And I ask because Trump doesn't seem to care even if it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tom's point is right. I'm guessing it's a little bit figurative in his example, in the sense that it's not necessarily going to be the one data point. But yeah, I think the way in which, or at least people kind of predicting the president's behavior, which is obviously impossible to do, often point to two things. They often point to the idea that the markets may indeed, given it's something he watches, get him to back down on some of these things. And then second, it's Americans themselves, more specifically his supporters and his very sort of loyal supporters, feeling the pinch of inflation and what the tariffs will mean for their everyday lives. So I think those are the two things that people still believe might have an impact, but the markets are just completely in disarray, doesn't seem to be having any type of impact on his decision-making. And frankly, as you alluded to, Elon Musk, obviously this new sort of BFF, is opposed to the idea of going as hard on tariffs, specifically with China, and wasn't able to get him off it. So it's incredibly hard to predict. I mean, who knows? And the idea of him running again, is that real or not? I certainly hope it isn't. I would tend to think that it's not. But if it is, if it is not, I should say, and that he plans on not running again, maybe he doesn't care that much about the electorate, and he's just going to go do what he thinks is right, and he wants to win, and he believes it'll reserve some space in history for him that he wants to be in. I think all of that is fraught with the sort of wrong analysis of how this will play out, but maybe that's it. So the honest answer is I don't know. And I don't think anybody really does. Everybody's trying to hang their hat on a few things that they believe will sort of sway the president act one way or the other, but those just aren't bearing out. So we all have to sort of every day, type in Google Trump Canada, Trump tariffs, Trump today to see what's going on.
Well, and I think that also points to, Rob, the fact that you talk about Elon Musk now calling out Peter Navarro, the pushback from the world really on all this. At the same time, countries are calling, the White House says, to negotiate. And he seems to really believe it doesn't seem like a negotiating tactic. The more this goes on, the more he seems to really believe this as an economic theory, despite the fact there isn't any evidence to support it. Historically, he has a different interpretation.
Well, I mean, Mr. Trump has not read much history. He should read Ken White's excellent book on Herbert Hoover and the Smoot-Hawley tariffs of 1930 that extended the Depression. I mean, I think that he likes being the center of attention, and he likes being the rainmaker. I mean, here he is. He's swinging an election in Canada. It's crazy to think that the Liberals could win an election that a year ago none of us thought they would win. Even people working on the Liberal campaign didn't think they had a shot at ever being reelected again. So I think, but that's what Trump does. He takes up all the oxygen, and I don't think he really does care if the person buying their Chevy Silverado has to pay X thousand more for it, or if grocery prices spike, or if jobs are lost in Fort Wayne, Indiana, because a car plant is shuttered. I don't think he's thinking about those things, and that's unfortunate. And I think the only guardrail in him, unfortunately for all of us and for our RRSPs and our investments and our TFSAs, is the midterm elections that are still a year and a half away, and when the Republicans presumably will be battered pretty badly in both the Senate and the House of Representatives.
Well, I guess the question is, do you think as we inch toward those midterms, James, that they will weigh on his own calculations?
Who knows? Inside of one sentence yesterday, he said, well, these could be permanent or they might be temporary. I don't know. The normal sentence, right, of subject, adjective, noun, and verb, his sentences fall apart in mid-flight, and you don't know what he's thinking on any random moment. So, even if the rumors of yesterday were arrived at and became a reality and there was a 90-day reprieve, what large-scale firm and any kind of responsible senior executive team would make large-scale purchasing and decisions about investing into either part of the Canada-U.S. relationship, not knowing what's going to happen in 90 days' time? I imagine if there's a 90-day pause, you would see the TSX, the Dow, the S&P, they would all have a nice quick spike, and then you'd see a lot of people cash out and throw their money into GICs and sit on them and try to be safe and hold cash and wait for the midterms and see what's next. The roller coaster ride that we're on is not ending anytime soon, and and we're in for the long haul. By the way, it's not just the expensive Silverados that Tom mentioned that the MAGA supporters would be frustrated by. It's also things like Donald Trump avoiding a ramp ceremony this past weekend when he was invited by the families of fallen American soldiers, and he decided to skip that to go to a round of golf. These things compounding one after the other are things that will lead to the Red Hat MAGA crew to say, you know what, I'm tired of being poor, I'm tired of being insulted, I'm tired of the uncertainty, and eventually they will turn away and be tired of Donald Trump.